Ever feel that you are so far behind or even left behind? Well, this could be because of where you are at in the cycle of creation. So today we are exploring the 6 phases of the feminine cycle of creation so that you can accelerate your growth and tap more into your innate power. So let's get started.
Welcome to the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, a place for the strong, sensitive, spiritual seeker to recognize the perfection of your human journey as a pathway to remember this. My work is to bridge both the emotional and spiritual worlds through proven and grounded frameworks that support you to live in the wholeness you already are. For over the past 2 decades, I have supported people from all around the world, as well as Fortune 500 companies, to dissolve the divisions within them and live with greater empowerment and love. This podcast is an exploration of the paradoxes that befuddle us as we live our lives being both human and divine. Together, you and I, along with other experts, will navigate integrating psychology and spirituality, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the darkness and the light, to create greater sacred union from within. I believe through your remembering that you are innately divine, that you will allow yourself to more openly shine. So let's get to it, because your unique light is needed more than ever.
Hello, beautiful souls. I'm so honored to be back with you today as I'm talking about this topic that I think can really impede our growth, which is this notion that we've fallen behind or we are so far behind we can't catch up. And I've actually been inspired to talk about this because of International Women's Day, which is going to be on Saturday, March 8th. And the theme of this year's International Women's Day is accelerate action. And so it's basically, they've come up with this theme because they through their research, they're saying it's going to take 5 generations or to around 2158 for us to actually, for women to achieve equality, true equality. And so they're saying, hey, how can we accelerate this? And what I think is, so I think that is a powerful energy that we want to be able to tap into. And I also know that when we are coming from this place of I've fallen behind, that I can't catch up, how do I really build this momentum? If we're coming from a place of lack, we're going to struggle. We're going to feel that push in the beginning, but the long game, we're going to lose if we don't tap into our innate power as women. And so that brought me into this juicy topic of our feminine cycle of creation, because this is our power. Now, if you are a guy who happens to be listening in, I still welcome you into this conversation. I think this is very important for you, to understand the women in your life and their innate power and just their own process with this, as well as your own feminine aspects of when you are in a creative cycle. That, again, as humans, we have both the feminine and masculine aspects. But if we are not tapping into our feminine cycle of creation, we're going to feel like we can't gain the momentum that we want. We're going to feel stuck or that we just can't catch up. And I want to discuss exactly why I believe this is happening. So this is not about, my expertise is not in the politics. I'm not going to get into that piece. My expertise is in emotional wellness, emotional well-being, and psychology, which is going to allow us to get more to the core of what keeps us from accelerating like we want to, and how we can tap into the feminine cycle of creation and utilize that energy to really allow us to prosper, accelerate in all ways. So today is really about focusing on what keeps us stuck from this accelerated energy. And where I want to begin with is we get what we tolerate. We get what we tolerate. Now, this is not with things that are outside of our control, like our health, right? That can be outside of our control. But there are things that are within our control, and that what gets reflected back to us is what we are tolerating. And yet, at the same time, when I say that, that doesn't mean we grab a hold of something and get a chokehold on it to try to control something to become what we want it to be. Because this is not part of the feminine cycle of creation. And this is where we can get really stuck. And the more we try to control, the more we're going to feel anxious because we're not tapping into our innate powers. So this is really about how we can hold on to this both and of that we are tolerating things, aspects of life that aren't working for us, and how we can continue to learn to tolerate less and less of what isn't working for us. And I believe we have been doing that. This in and of itself is something to celebrate with this International Women's Day, because we are movement makers. We have had movements that have changed the trajectory for generations of women to come, from voting rights and property rights, and just being able to express our sexuality. There's so many aspects where we have gained freedoms, and we want to honor that. And sometimes that takes time to build that momentum. Now, this piece about accelerating action is this beauty of that sometimes there is this wave of energy that comes forward and unearths the truth in such a profound way that people can't deny it. And it allows for powerful change to happen, what feels like instantaneously. What that brings up for me is what happened with the Me Too movement, because for years there has been sexual harassment, and yet women just bit their tongue. They were just like, this is just part of the work, right? That you just deal with this. And yet, I believe it was 2017, that's when the Me Too movement really took a hold. And this is where this momentum was like, no more. And so being able to recognize some things may take some time, other pieces, we can really tap into that accelerated piece. If we stay in this place of being so focused on the setbacks that we drown ourselves in it, we certainly are going to lose our momentum. And here's the deal: setbacks are part of the creation cycle, because through them, we will strengthen our knowingness and our foundation in order for us to accelerate, in order for us to create a certain level of momentum that does change things in a way that feels instantaneous, because it's so powerful. And so it's important that we see the setback, we recognize it for what it is, and we utilize that to gain greater insight and knowingness from within about how we are going to move forward, and how do we want to accelerate amidst setbacks. So again, it's these setbacks themselves that can bring forward the very resources within us and externally that we need in order to make permanent change. And that's what this accelerated action is about, is that we're in it for the long term, where we want the long game, where we are impacting generations and generations of women for as long as we can create that impact. Now, from a psychological perspective, it's important to understand how women have been taught to tolerate. So what I mean by that is throughout history, we've been forced to tolerate in order to keep our children. So our capacity to love and what it means to love for us was used against us. We were kept in line, or we would lose those that we loved. We were threatened with losing our children. We were threatened that we couldn't keep them safe. And so the cost to ourselves, in order to tolerate, it was worth it to us. We're like, all right, I'll take that price. But thankfully, because of women before us, where many of us stand, not all of us, there's still certain areas of the world where this isn't the case, but more and more often, we don't need to tolerate at that level anymore. That cost of our children, of how we love, is not a price that we have to pay any longer. There's still going to be a cost, but it doesn't have to be that level of the cost. And so what has happened is there's an unconscious generational pattern that we have learned to tolerate in order to keep the peace, right? This is a unconscious generational pattern that has been built into women as a sense of safety for ourselves and our children. So how many times have you said, I know I have said this, I don't like conflict. I don't like conflict. I don't want to stir the pot, right? But conflict, challenges, butting heads, this is a part of navigating life. This is a skill that we want to be able to learn so that we are able to have accelerated action. And when we are saying, I don't like conflict, what we're saying is, I'm willing to bend, twist, and contort myself in order to avoid conflict. And what we have to realize is this isn't just hurting you. This isn't just hurting us when we bend and contort ourselves. We are ensuring that nothing changes. And these family patterns will continue on until we are willing to look at this part of us that says, I don't like conflict. Why? Are we afraid of being disliked? Are we afraid of being rejected? And is that price worth it? And this is where the love of ourselves and our truth becomes more worth it. Because thankfully, we don't have the price of losing our children over our head anymore. We just have the cost of parts of the external not validating us, not receiving us. And we as women are learning that we can be okay with that. And not only can we be okay with that, but we are supporting others, men and women, when we honor the parts that others may not be okay with. When we honor that within ourselves, it helps others do the same for themselves. And this is how we become the chalice that's able to hold the all. This chalice is how we are built as women. We are able to hold the both and. We're able to hold both the beauty and power of life and the excruciating pain and suffering that is also a part of life. And when we honor this within ourselves, then we're not going to go to this place of accepting less than for ourselves. So this is when we find ourselves tolerating our way through life, we tell ourselves, we are doing this bending and this twisting and contorting out of love. And we've got to be very clear that that is not truly love. Because this love is for what? For who? It's not for you. Because if you're doing this, I know you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to feel like you can never catch up. And when we are exhausted, there is no way you can accelerate anything in your life, right? And we can think we're doing it for another, but we're not allowing another to show up in their strength and their power. And so this is what I'm going to get into as I talk about these stages to this feminine cycle of creation that is your innate power that you need to recognize within yourself. And you want to understand where you may be getting stuck in this cycle. Because again, if you're exhausted, you can't accelerate anything. You are working on fumes. And we all know we can't expect a car to be able to accelerate and maintain an optimal speed when your tank is running on empty, right? And since burnout has been studied and included gender differences, women have always outpaced men when it comes to being exhausted and overwhelmed. And so we've got to look at this, and we can look at these aspects from the outside of women taking on more of the caregiving, because when this exhaustion shows up, it's not necessary. It's for most women, it's not with our work life. It's after work. It's what we're doing outside of work demands. And so what are we tolerating outside of our work demands? And why are we doing this? Again, coming from a place of compassion, first of all, because I have done these things, and it takes a conscious vulnerability and surrender as to what this is about internally that keeps me behaving in a way that's not beneficial for the overall good of for the good of the whole, especially within a family, and that continues to unconsciously create these gender disparities. And so this is a psychological piece that we want to be able to look at to be able to change this. So first of all, it's recognizing that our power as women is different, which is why we were led, I believe, to be disconnected from our power. Our power is internal. Your power is within your body. And so it's recognizing all of life is made with balance. So if the masculine body is made more powerful physically, the feminine is more powerful internally. As women, our bodies hold this innate wisdom that is beyond what our minds can comprehend. And it's so powerful. But yet we have been taught to turn against our bodies with judgment on our looks or our sexual expression. We've been taught not to understand how the body's energy speaks to us through the language of our emotions. And instead, we judge or manage how we feel. And our bodies are literally this chalice of love that is holding both the beautiful and excruciating parts of life. And as women, we can hold this when we are in our power. And this love is the power of creation that resides within women. And so it starts with our ability to come from this desire that is from pure love. And from our desires, this is where change, new life, transformation occurs. And then the next stage we move in is sacrifice. So when we are birthing something new, there's a sacrifice that takes place where we are allowing ourselves to step into more of our power by being able to let go of aspects of our needs so that we are able to receive something greater than ourselves. And to build on that sacrifice, we've got to nurture what we are creating. And so the next phase is this phase of nurturance. We nurture a newborn. So we have let's use a newborn or wanting the desire of a child to really go through this. So there's desire for a child. There's the sacrifice of what we have to go through, the pain, all the different elements of life that you go from being a person that's just taking care of yourself to taking care of another to nurturing this child. And then as we move from nurturing, we go into a cycle of building a steady foundation for the child. So you're building this steady foundation regarding whatever the desired outcome is, so it can thrive. And you want it to thrive so that ultimately you can let it go. So it can be its unique expression. Again, whether this is a child, a business, whatever you are birthing out of desire from love. And then when you let go, after that stage comes the stage of pleasure, where you are able to enjoy this creation at its fullest expression and bask in the love of it until you feel innately a desire to create again from love, not from lack. So why this is so powerful and why this power is so different is that it entails an active and conscious surrender to what is, so that we can address what is in front of us with all that we have. To nurture, to build a solid foundation, we've got to be in the present moment with where the desired outcome is at in its cycle of becoming. And so this power requires us to show up with all that we have. And again, if we are stuck in the power, the cycle of sacrifice, you're never going to get to these other stages that naturally fuel you to be able to sustain you through the creation process and to desire to recreate and accelerate action towards other creations that are meaningful to you. So I hope this is making sense. This power within you requires trust in what is yet to be created. So, or what is yet to actually be firmly grounded in reality, right? Because we're in this creative cycle. We have this desire, this vision, and we're nurturing it into its fullest expression. And to do that, we have to be honoring and trusting the guidance of what it takes to allow this to flourish, our desired outcome to flourish to its fullest expression. And this requires being able to dismiss the external noises that try to pull you away from your innate power. And this is a strength that is built from within. So most women are not physically stronger than men. And yet, look at what our bodies are capable of doing that men cannot physically do despite their strength. When we birth another human, that is a different level of power that is not celebrated, honored, acknowledged enough. Now, men's empowered strength is important. It's beautiful and it's needed. It feels like this steady anchor that will bulldoze through an obstacle in order to protect what he loves. And that it has its own beauty in and of itself. Women's empowered strength requires surrender and self-trust. We also have this power of protection, but our ability that is required of us to surrender to the unknown is an act of vulnerability and courage that we want to tap into and recognize more. We must surrender to our body's wisdom, our inner wisdom, and the wisdom of the divine within us that is working through us as us, and then muster the courage to allow that energy, that strength within us to guide our actions. And oftentimes how this shows up will not make logical sense. And at the same time, this is exactly what is needed given the circumstances. So I'll give you an example. When people go through programs that we do, this very process of going towards what their ego tells them is in opposition of what they want is oftentimes what they're facing. And so people come into the program, they feel stuck, they've wanted some desired outcome, and no matter how much efforting, how much pushing, how much they've tried and to do, whether that desired outcome is their own happiness or love or with a significant other or love with their child, their efforting, the ways they've gone about doing it is not working, right? And so often the process is if they want this relationship, the process they are taken through is to remember the power to face what isn't love so they can receive the love that they desire. Now, what most people are doing is they're trying to fix what isn't love. And that's the bending and the twisting and the contorting that we do to try to make, quote unquote, make things better. And it actually makes things worse because we are not in our power and we're actually not allowing another to be in their power, to create support all around for the loving environment that is wanting to be fostered and birthed through you and through another. So logic is saying to them, like, the way to receive love is to fix things. You've got to make things work. Relationships take work. And this type of love is constant efforting. I'm telling you, relationships, I don't want to say they don't take that much work. They take conscious structuring to develop them. But at some point, they should not be that much work. And so this is how we want to set things up. This is our beauty. This is our strength to be able to set up these healthy structures so that they're able to withstand the challenges that life throws at us. So there will be challenges. I'm not trying to say life is rainbows and butterflies. It can be beautiful rainbows and butterflies, but there's also storms. But we don't want to feel like life is a constant storm. We don't want to feel like we're constantly navigating these treacherous waters. This is when we're not tapping into our innate power. And if you're there, have compassion. I've been there, and it's what we've often been taught power looks like or what love looks like. And these scenarios just aren't working for us. And so the being stuck is when we are not tapping into the feminine powers of love. And through its whole cycle of the creation process, where women tend to get stuck are in these places of our innate power that have been honored, that have been celebrated. And that is us sacrificing and nurturing others. And so when we are left there, we are in the exhale. We're in the constantly giving, right? And so, of course, that's not sustainable. But yet, this is where women have been upheld as being the good wife, the good mother, the good person when we're constantly in that exhale versus a cycle of creation that is sustainable must have the inhale and the exhale. And that's how that natural cycle is developed, is that yes, there is sacrifice, there is nurturance, and then you're building a sustainable foundation so that you can enjoy, so that it's easier. And we're missing this inhale piece. We're missing what it means to have that steadiness that allows for the structure that can withstand the challenges and has the resilience to thrive. So our desires will only thrive when we build them from a love that provides the scaffolding of support that will ultimately allow your desired outcomes to stand on their own without our controlling, without our efforting, hovering to ensure that everything is going exactly as we see fit. And I get it as a parent, as a person in a relationship, as a business owner. I've been in that place of efforting, controlling, hovering, and it's exhausting. And so the scaffolding must be able to withstand the challenges and strengthen the roots of what you are creating, what your desired outcome is. This is done through our expectations and values that are not only about your needs or what you believe your desired outcomes needs are, but are about the needs of the whole. And this is how the feminine creates from love because it is in accordance with the greater good. And this is how your true desired outcome will strengthen its foothold because you're requiring it to deepen its roots by allowing another to recognize what they are capable of within themselves. And let me tell you, a woman having expectation and values is not only is it not honored, this is where it's frowned upon. This is where we're called a bitch. This is where we're called too demanding. And so we can get to this place of where the structures that we put in place become too structured. And that's not what we're talking about here either. We want that healthy place of a structure that is there so that it doesn't collapse before it's found its steadiness, but that ultimately won't need the scaffolding anymore. And so this is where we have to go into this trusting place and into our innate knowingness that again goes beyond our own needs, our human needs for certainty. And that can be where the ego traps us, right? We want to be certain, and then we get all controlling and, and focused and hovering and trying to control and contain. So if you're not watching me on YouTube, you'll see my hands are like this death grip on whatever we're trying to achieve. And we will not flourish and we will not accelerate our growth. We won't have accelerated action because it's going to feel like we keep hitting a wall. And that is frustrating. And that's when we just become depleted. Feels like our actions aren't turning into what we desire. And it feels like life is a constant efforting. So let's talk about the scaffolding piece. So think of literally what a physical scaffolding does. We need this so that we know that it can hold a certain amount of weight in a building structure before it collapses. So while a building is being built, we have the scaffolding that helps it hold a certain amount of weight until the building becomes more secure. And so you can't tolerate an unstable structure here, right? Or it will fail. And so we want to make sure it's got the proper scaffolding, and structure built into it, and that it's not unstable. And we want to be able to create the structure and the scaffolding within the boundaries of the site's property, right? Building on correct property lines and codes and so forth is what it will allow it to be able to thrive in the long term. Otherwise, you got to tear the whole thing down and start again, right? So if we have a lack of tolerance for instability, this is important because it's showing us something is not secure, something is not balanced, and that the scaffolding and the structure will ultimately fail under stress. And stress with the building can be wind, load shifts, improper assembly, right? And so we have this construction scaffolding to show us where we need to step into our power and the consequences if we don't, because the structure in which our outcomes have been built are going to be faulty unless we step into our innate power. And it is our innate sense of power, because if we women are natural creators. We have this ability within us, and we know how to create from a place that our creations thrive if we really tap into our innate knowing. And so our power and the creation process is providing the right amount of scaffolding that doesn't create dependency nor allows the creation to collapse. And it's through our innate knowing, it's through our having the proper scaffolding of our own inner self-worth that allows us to create this in other aspects of our life. And this means that the scaffolding of your creation needs to have boundaries and lack of tolerance. And we don't honor this enough. And this is where this lack of tolerance says enough, or get it together, or I won't tolerate that. No, that's not okay. We've got to be able to say things like this. You can say, I understand your perspective, but here's why this doesn't work for the whole or the family or the business. And we can do this and must do this in a way where we're simultaneously nurturing until there is strength within the structure that we are building, so that there is this strong foundation. So we need to be able to have that nurturing element that at the same time says, you are capable. I've seen it with XYZ examples. I know you're capable of this. I believe in you. And you are the only one who can make this happen. Now, I can provide for you A, but B and C must come from you. I believe in you. This is why it must come from you. And so you create the setup so that you and those aspects of life that you desire to have, experience, flourish, so you can let go and then ultimately enjoy it. This is when we start to inhale, because you've created the scaffolding so the desired outcome can begin to stand on its own. Inhale. We're not doing all this to work and exhaust ourselves. We need the inhale so that we can let go, and then ultimately we can receive, we can enjoy, we can be in our place of pleasure, because we aren't in a stage in the cycle of creation of sacrifice and nurturance anymore. But we have to reteach ourselves this inhale part of the cycle of creation. and we've been taught to turn away from the inhale. And we've been living with the consequence of that then, right? Through our burnout, overwhelm, and literally saying to ourselves, I'm struggling to breathe. I can't tell you how many women say to me, I'm struggling to breathe. And I turn to them and I'm like, well, wise one, your inner wisdom right there is guiding you to remember the inhale. And it sounds cliche. It sounds like this nice thing. I don't know. Inhale, receive. It takes the structure. It takes the willingness to no longer tolerate. It takes the willingness to stand in your boundaries, your values, your expectations for the greater good, to be able to truly inhale and relax. So we want to be able to give this to ourselves. Otherwise, we can't accelerate in anything, any part of our life, because we're so busy trying to manage everything, which brings me to one of the biggest ways that we have been taught to disassociate from our power, which is our emotions. This is your body's innate knowing, and managing your emotions is exhausting. I mean, we've got enough to do. I don't want you managing. And this is exactly another example where we've been taught, oh, managing emotions is great. You want to manage your emotions. And life can be so much simpler than that when we are taught the true power of our emotions to make our life easier. This is literally, your emotions are literally your body's language guiding you on how to make your life easier. And we're trying to manage them. I mean, it's madness making, but this is the madness that gets women outside of our power. And it has us spinning, and then we're exhausted, and then we can't accelerate. And so we've been taught that managing our emotions is good because it's better than our emotions going out sideways. I understand that, but there's a much better way that allows you to tap into your body's innate wisdom. And when your emotions are used as allies, they're going to support you to create the structures that in your life that will provide a life that feels more joyful, playful, fun for you. And that's what we all are looking for. So this is going to be difficult to create if the inhale aspects of your innate power are not being received by you. Again, this is not our fault. This is what we've been trained. We've been engulfed in the masculine versions of power. Again, beauty to them. And I'm so glad that men have that innate power. It's so needed. And at the same time, it's not the best path, especially for women. So the way to greater ease, that's what this is about, is actually receiving the empowered guidance of your negative feelings. This means receiving, inhaling their guidance and wisdom rather than judging and managing them. Changing your emotions from managing to receiving them in an empowered form will strengthen you because you are being guided to deepen your level of self-trust in a way that empowers you so that you are so steady, that you are so knowing, because you have that ability to listen from within. And that power scares others. That's why it's been that's why it's been we've been taught to turn away from it. And it's time to reclaim that. Your empowered emotions will guide you to tap into a power that chooses more life, despite having to face our fears. I'm going to say this again. Your empowered emotions will guide you into a power that chooses more life, despite having to face your fears. And that's power, because once you face your fears, what's left is love. That is the power of creation that resides within you. And this is for all of us, regardless of your gender. This is a gift. This is a feminine gift that resides in all humans. And we want the power of our emotions to help us make our life easier, to help us face our fears so that we're acting from greater love. That is the power of creation that resides within all of us. And so whether you are birthing a human or a business or some other creation, it's recognizing that you being able to tap into your innate wisdom will provide that internal foundation and structure that will allow you to weather the ups and downs of getting your creation to that place of your desired outcome. So when I look at these creation journeys of both my children and my business, let me tell you, they are faced with dealing with unknowns, dealing with the unexpected, pain that has brought me to my knees, and an overwhelming sense of joy and gratitude that has brought me to my knees, filled with thanks for expanding me in ways that I did not know was possible, right? And I know if you're a person who has your own creation, something that's come from you out of love, a child, a creative project, a business, whatever it is, that you know how that experience has led to your growth and has allowed you to receive in so many countless ways that you would have never imagined possible for you. And this is what life and our humanity is guiding us to receive more of. These creations, as I'm sure you have found with your creations, have required more than I've ever thought was possible to come from me. And that's the point, right? Because through love, we get to become and remember more and more of our divine essence. And our divine essence is like what is possible is endless, as long as that desire is coming from love rather than lack. So this is our power to accelerate through action that is a conscious surrender into both the inhale and the exhale components of the creative journey. It starts with a loving desire. It turns into sacrifice, that turns into nurturing what we've created, and then building a steady foundation based on values, expectations, lack of tolerance, boundaries, so that ultimately what you have built can withstand life's challenges. And then you can let go. And then you can receive the beauty, the pleasure, the joy. This is what awaits us in our innate creative journey. So what inner structure do you need to be able to weather life's challenges, or just so you don't have to be so on top of everything and there's room for you? There's room for you, your joy, your playfulness, your love, your beauty, your expression of life. What inner structure needs to be more solidified? And any voice that tells you that this is nonsense, this doesn't matter, this would be nice to have, but is not important, is a voice that has been soaked and drenched in the patriarchy of that the only power there is pushing and forcing and demanding. And that is not working for us. We see it in the statistics, the burnout, the overwhelm, the stuckness. Now, I think we all have this voice because this is the fishbowl we've been in, right? I've had this voice. But you can't keep allowing this voice to win, because that voice that says this is nonsense, that says this would be nice, it comes with a cost. And that cost is some form of loss. there is something you won't be able to allow in because you're literally not allowing the inhale. And then we can't receive what we desire. So, as a part of the chalice that you innately are, remember you are meant to receive. You are meant to receive so much that you are overflowing, where it's so easy to give because there's so much coming from within you, your internal living source that comes from the divine that is innately a part of you. Allowing yourself to inhale and exhale within your creation process is an act of power. It's an act of courage. And it is an act of courage to live from this level of consciously surrendering, trusting in your cycle of creation that can birth miracles, that can birth expanded love, and can birth a life that has great meaning and is an expression of love that is unique to you. And so accelerating your path as a woman means accelerating the path of all women, because in it we are modeling what it means to no longer tolerate not being able to inhale. And again, inhale is not just this, nice, nice thing. It's really about allowing ourselves the inner discipline and responsibility to set up structures so that we can inhale with ease, with pleasure, with joy. That is your innate birthright. It's all of our innate birthrights. And on International Women's Day, may you remember your innate power, and may every day be a day of honoring the divine aspects of creation that reside within you. So until next time, I hope that you take in that there is nothing to fix, just to remember. Take care.
I am so honored you have joined me today. If you enjoyed the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, subscribe so you don't miss any of our power-filled episodes. Also, if you know another who is strong, sensitive, and spiritual and wants to dive deeper into emotions and ancient wisdom so they too can create profound peace and fulfillment from within, please share this podcast. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to reconnecting with you soon.